The sun has left and forgotten me.
Your stories don't
It's
define you,
dark,
but how you
I
tell them
cannot
will. Hi, I'm
see.
Sarah Elkins, your
Why
host
does
and chief
this
story
rain fall
maker at
down?
Elkins
I'm gonna
Consulting. When I talk
drown
about being a
in
story
a
maker, what I'm thinking about is how
sea.
the decisions I make, the actions I take, and the way that I treat the people in the world around me are really what make the stories that I share later. So, choosing what kind of stories I want to share about my activities, or even more importantly, the stories I want other people to share about me, really influence the decisions I make and how I live my life. So, that's what I mean by story maker. And today's guest is a perfect example of a story maker, someone who has made decisions, made conscious choices to change how she's experiencing herself and how others experience her, to serve, to grow, and to develop other people to be able to find their own path of changing so that they make the stories they're proud of. I'm so eager to introduce you, listeners, to my new friend, Holli Tabren McEachern. We met on LinkedIn, and when we had a 30-minute call a little while ago, I knew that she was going to share stories that will inspire you, not only on her own experience and being able to understand her persistence and grit and being inspired by that, but also by uncovering maybe your own experiences that are surprisingly related. Holli, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be here talking to you today and just being able to just share my story. This is just such an amazing platform of storytellers, and I'm just like, wow, so honored to be on it.
Oh, well, you're going to inspire so many listeners. I'm eager to get started. So, Holli, you know that I like to do this. I like to start by asking my guests to share something about themselves that most people might not know about them. It's not on your LinkedIn profile, it's not something you talk about very often. And the reason I ask this question is that, especially now, we have a tendency to anchor people in time based on one interaction or just a handful of experiences we have with a person within that context of our interactions with them, when we're not acknowledging the complexity of who we are. We know that we don't want to be labeled with one aspect of our lives. I'm a mom. I'm a white woman. I live in Montana. I want people to know how complicated I can be and that my views on things, my perspectives, my experiences run the gamut. So when you share something about yourself that most people don't know, it helps our listeners have a more complex view of who you are. So, what can you share with us?
There's so many things that I can share. And since we're always so professional, I am going to share that I'm a crybaby. I cried on Bambi. Yes, I cried on Bambi when they killed Bambi's mom, and I still call every deer Bambi, and they just melt my heart every time I see one. So, yeah,
So you are sensitive soul, is what you're trying to say.
I am, but don't tell anybody because they gonna think, I'm soft or something, and, we
Well,
don't want
we wouldn't want people to know we're soft.
no.
I understand why you have that discomfort, that separation of people not knowing you're soft. And once our listeners hear your story, they'll understand it better too. But you and I both know at this point in our lives that we can be both.
Yes, yes, definitely. It's necessary.
It is, absolutely. I truly believe that we can't truly connect with people unless we share a level of vulnerability that makes us uncomfortable.
That's right. That's right.
So, you are a crybaby.
And
When was the last time that something you watched that maybe shouldn't have made you cry but did? When was the last time that happened?
who, it's crazy because I didn't get to see it. I want to go see it. But my cousin was telling me about it, and it made me cry, Mustafa, because I cried on Lion King, when they killed, Simba's dad. But then she was telling me about Mustafa and kind of like the backstory with Scar and Simba and why he hated him so much. And it was just so relatable to life, to how we compare ourselves to other people, how when the people that we love seem to favor one person over us, we feel like we lack something. We feel less worthy. And Scar was so worthy. He was just different. He wasn't fearless and courageous, I guess, like a typical lion is supposed to be, but maybe he was like that 1% and not like the 99. So, like, I was able to really understand Scar's story, right? Perfect
Mm.
platform to talk about this. And also Simba's story, how he viewed it at a different lens. He didn't see why Scar would be mad. And then when Scar realized, I screwed up. It was my jealousy and envy. Like, Mustafa really loves me. Let me try to help him. Now he'll have that scar to remind him of his choice, right? And the consequence for his choice because he didn't really think things through. He let his emotions take over. And so now I want to see the movie.
That is so interesting that
Mhm.
hearing your cousin tell you about the movie made you cry
Mhm. Yes.
without you even watching it yourself.
Yeah. It was so
Wow.
relatable to and not
Yeah.
just to me and to so many people I talked to, because I just thought about myself, like, with my grandma, trying my grandma was, deaf and mute, and I learned sign language, all of these things, and she just favored my cousin over me because she looked so much more like her, she had the beautiful Indian hair, my hair was, like, 4C and coarse, and I tried to do all the other things to use my brain. Like my cousin didn't know sign language. She didn't know how to communicate with her. But it wasn't enough. And like my dad wanted me to go see my grandma. And I was like, this is like torture. And I never forget that. So and for a while I was jealous of my cousin because of that. So I automatically understood Scar.
Isn't it interesting how, those stories from our childhood just keep on coming back in a pretty cyclical way?
Mhm.
Like, I was just having a conversation with a friend about, her experience as a child, trying to achieve because that's the best kind of attention she could get from her
Yeah.
parents, and, um, the other thing that came up was that so many times we seem to chase the people that have no reciprocity in the relationship,
Right.
where your cousin loves you, wants to spend time with you love her, you love to spend time with her, and but you're choosing to chase this relationship that doesn't give you the same reciprocity. Why do we do that?
I don't know. I think it's like because we look at society and we look at the grandma with the grandkids, and the grandma always spoils the grandkids. Like you have this program, like you're programmed from the way things are, programmed the way everybody does things. So for me, it was like if my grandma is not like that with me, but I see her like that with my cousin, it must be something wrong with me. Like
Mhm,
I come over and my cousin has presents under the tree, but not me. Like, what's wrong with me? And you start to internalize it and you start to think and think that when someone treats you like that or ignores you or looks over you or bypasses you, that is still something wrong with you. Like even as you grow and you become an adult. And that's why I do what it is I do, because you have to get to the root of the problem. Automatically able to identify what that movie triggered. What problem, what
mhm,
issue did it trigger in my childhood? And I'm able to talk about it so that maybe other people can hear it and something triggers them and they can say, you know what, it's okay. That happened. I recognize it. I understand that certain things will trigger that memory, but I'm such
mhm.
a different person now. Like, and me and my cousin is so different. And I love the woman that I've become, and I know she loves the woman that she become. And unfortunately, my grandma's not here to see it. But I no longer need her validation.
Right, And the question that I always come back to in those situations is, A, what did your grandmother go through that she became so unaware, oblivious, or uncaring about how she was um, treating people, right? What
Mm,
happened in her life to make her so cruel, even if she was unknowingly cruel? And then the other
yeah,
side of it is, even if you don't know, understanding that her behavior has nothing to do with you,
right,
right? Like how do we get to that point where we pick apart that story and reframe it to know that it wasn't our fault, that we deserve love and reciprocal relationships.
right. You said it, Sarah, when you said that you don't know their story and what happened with them. I was able to no longer need her validation as an adult because I was at the point where I started to ask questions, and I started to ask the right questions that will help me understand the character and personality of my grandma, versus, other grandmas that I hear people talk about all the time. And she was born deaf and mute, and so was her husband. She had 9 children. Back in those days, they didn't understand how to help people who were deaf and mute. So every time she had a baby, it was taken from her. It was taken from her and given to another family member. So, like, on my dad's side of the family, I have 2 sets of grandparents because my dad was given to my cousin, his cousin, who winds up being pretty much my grandma because you raised him like her own
Right.
child. So what is it like for a woman to carry a baby, have the baby ripped from her and not know what favoritism even is, what it looks like? And the one child, this grandchild you get to see looks so much like the babies that you had that were taken from you.
Right.
And so that's why you connect to her so much because she looks so much like your babies that you never got to see really grow, watch them
Right.
day to day. She got to see them, but not like raise them.
Right.
So I gave her grace for that.
Mm, I love that. That probably helped you get through the more recent experiences of transitioning out of incarceration. So
Yes.
our listeners will want to know that story because it's part of your books,
Yes.
right? The book in particular that we're talking about, with these stories and how you're coaching other women and helping in programs to
Yes.
reduce recidivism for women particularly and young people
Yes.
particularly. So, what is the story behind that as much as you are feeling like you can share?
Yeah. So, Sarah, I just started to answer the right calls. It's crazy. Like we're always waiting on that phone call that's going to change our lives, right? That phone call. And unfortunately, Sarah, that first phone call that I answered really tested my faith. And and while I thought it was going to change my life, it was, someone called me. I was at work doing my legal 9 to 5. Okay. I was at work. I was 19 years old. And I got a phone call. And the person on the other end said, "You want to make $5,000?" 19 years old, no children. First thing I start to do is calculate how long it'll take me to make $5,000 working at this job where it's half your check, you got no dependents. That's what it started to happen. That phone call had me calculating and I didn't think about the consequence. I was just thinking about the money. I'm 19. And
Right.
so that phone call led to me being sentenced to 25 years in prison because I answered the wrong call.
Mm, that's an amazing way of putting it. Wow. Okay, so let's bring the story from your being kind of a crybaby and how you got through your time in prison,
Mhm.
especially with as sensitive as you are.
Right?
What helped you? What do you attribute your resilience, your grit, your persistence to, particularly while you were there?
Yes. So although I was a crybaby, I am a crybaby. I'm still a crybaby, baby Sarah. I grew up in a very I'm from Harlem, New York, And so I grew up in a very rough city. I was soft and sensitive, but I had to be hard
Right.
just to survive. So I learned different survival mechanisms that are not always healthy either. And I started to become a product of my environment. Mind you, great parents. My parents have been married 52 years. They celebrated their 52 years of marriage this
Wow.
year. I went to some of the best schools, very, very smart, gifted and talented school, all the great things. But my environment just showed me something so different. My parents tried to shelter me as much as possible. But when I walked out the door, all I saw was money and mayhem, And so I got sucked in to that. So I developed these survival skills being sucked into that environment. And so that helped me initially. Then so I was introduced so I don't want to say I was prior to me being incarcerated, I was in real estate. And God, He prepares you for what's next. You don't know that it's preparation. You don't realize that all of these things that happen in your life, even the bad choices you made, will prepare you for the next thing. Because when God has you carrying a move, I would like to say, my pastor, I preached a word this Sunday about carrying a move. And I feel like God put a move in me to carry. So my process was going to be way different. And preparing me, I was in real estate, but prior to me serving my time, because I was out on bond for 3 years. So I went to real estate school, obtained my real estate license. My real estate partner, who God partnered me with, was a radical Christian. One of those like Sadducees, Pharisees type of Christian. I mean, everything Bible. The gum was Bible gum, girl. She had chewing gum. I never heard of it. Her part-time job was at the Christian bookstore. When I tell you guys that you're gonna need some radical faith for what you're about to face, that had to be why. She bought me my first Bible that I could understand the scriptures, and it was the Joyce Myers Amplified Bible. And never try to memorize scripture from an Amplified Bible. You'll be memorizing. Okay. So I got that not knowing that this was about to help me. This is was going to be that foundation of what I needed to get through this process because I was going to be there, for quite some time. And then um once I got inside, I was still reading those gangster books, Sarah. I still wanted to know about what was going on in the streets. The very thing that got me 25 years in prison, I was still connected to. I was still reading those books. So God said, you know what? I got something for you. He met me right in the middle of the book, right in the middle of a book, so out of place. There's this scripture, 1 Corinthians 15:33. Do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character.
Oh,
Things
isn't
begin
that
to
what every
change.
parent says to their kid?
Mhm,
Be
mhm.
careful who you spend time with because you'll
Yes.
become like them.
And guess what? Guess what's even special about this, Sarah? The part that I was reading was a girl remembering what her grandma told her.
Mm.
She's remembering what her grandma told her, how her grandma tried to warn her about this boy that she was dealing with that now has her on a high-speed chase. So in this part of the story, they're on a high-speed chase. He's shooting at police, and she's crying and she's hysterical and she remembers what her grandma said
Mm.
in the scripture. Yeah.
What happened after that? What was the first thing you did with that new insight? Because so many times I don't believe in a light bulb moment.
No,
I don't
no.
believe it's dark and then it's light. I believe there's a dimmer switch in there, and every
Yes.
little thing brightens that light. So what was the next little thing
The
that
next
went on?
Sarah, actually, I'm gonna go back just a little bit when I first started my time. So when you first start your time, mind you, I was sentenced to 25 years in prison for drug trafficking. My first offense, never been in trouble before. I got in trouble with my two male cousins, and so that's that story. And when you first start, you go through a process called receiving and evaluation, and that's where they tests on you, get your family history, all of these things, see if you have any mental health issues, things of that nature. And during receiving evaluation, you're in this cell kind of thing with other people. And it was two other girls in this one cell. And they had a prison ministry that would come by and visit. And so these two ladies had came and they stood at the door. And the other girls, they ran to the door. They were excited. They knew they were coming. And I sat on my bed. And the lady, one of them just kept staring at me. And it's like she was staring through me. And she told me to come to the door. I came to the door and she says, "You're not going to do the time man said you're going to do, but God had to preserve you for a purpose." She said, "You could have went somewhere and lost your life." And it was so true because and I'm like, "How did you know I went anywhere?" Because we did. A guy, set us up to with the police, whereas a guy could have been setting us up to be murdered, or robbed, because that's how things happen, in that type of a lifestyle. And so she said, "You're gonna write a book, because people are going to be transformed from your testimony." And at the time, I'm like, "Lady, I just got 25 years." But something inside of me was like, "I believe you." Like, I believed her. Because I never believed that I was going to do 25 years. I just knew in my heart that, okay, this is the test of something. I just didn't call it faith at the time, right? And
Right.
so, yeah, and so that's how that started before the scripture, right? Because obviously I was still not still, straddling on the fence. So God said, "Okay, I'm gonna come meet you right where you are." And then I went to the woman of God at the church, and I mean at inside of the prison. Of course, there's always that woman of God there that knows the Bible front to back. Her name was Sharon Smith. I went to Sharon and I just started asking questions. I had questions, and she started to tell me about God and about his character. I didn't like Old Testament God because he was ruthless. I said, "Goodness gracious, you go kill everybody, the kids, girl." I was
That's
like,
I have to
I
tell you,
need great God. I
my
need great.
younger son so, we're not religious Jews, but we're Jewish, and we raised our boys both in a Jewish household with the rituals and traditions, and we
Yes.
even did each of them had a bar mitzvah, and my younger son, his bar mitzvah portion was about when, there's a revolt against
Mhm.
Moses and Aaron,
Yeah.
and the I'm forgetting his name because my brain isn't working properly,
Mhm.
but he's like, "Mom, the earth opened up and swallowed them because they were
Okay.
revolting against
Yeah.
this," right? He's like, "Doesn't that seem like a little overkill?" He burns the entire family so they're left as ashes, like, all of the family so that, like, they're learning a lesson, and I said, "Well, Max, um,
Mhm.
the Bible is literature, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We can learn lessons from everything we read. We just
Mhm.
have to choose what the lessons are. Why are we reading this now? Why is this in our lives right at this moment?" And I said, "You're a teenager. You rebel daily.
Mhm.
What would happen if I decided that the punishment for your rebellion was
Mhm.
like the lopping off of your arm or opening up
Right.
the earth to swallow you up?
Right.
Like, this
Right.
is your opportunity to see it as a metaphor for other kinds of behavior."
Mhm.
And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, okay." So, yeah, okay. I just had to share that. Yeah,
No, I love
harsh.
that.
Old
I love
Testament is harsh.
It's hard. I said, "Oh, I got to get to Grace, girl, because I couldn't it was too much." But
Mhm.
she really helped me, and actually, I winds up going to Bible college. So, there was a President Initiative program through CIU, which is Columbia International University, and there was an opportunity, to sign up to be part of the cohort. And so they were only choosing, I think, 13 people, no, 15 people and like 2 alternates, from all 3 of the prisons. So out of all 3 of the prisons here in South Carolina, only 15 people will be chosen, to participate in this 2-year associate degree program. And you would get your degree in biblical studies with a concentration in ministry. And part of that, the contractual obligation was that you had to do 3 years of ministry at whatever institution they sent you. And so I signed up and I was part of the second cohort. So I have my degree in biblical studies through Columbia International
Wow.
University.
And where did you serve from there? Because
So
you
what
said you had 3 years that you had to serve.
right, so I had to go so they wound up sending me from Camille, to Leith, which was probably about 2 hours away, 2.5 hours away, still, of course, in South Carolina. It's totally different. Imagine well, no, not imagine, but just being somewhere for, like, 6.5 years, knowing everybody, you're kinda comfortable, you kinda know the routine, know the rules. Way different prisons are just structured differently. Camille is way more lax, right? Leaf was strict, walking a straight line. Like, I'm not used to doing this, right? For 6.5 years. So God just always got me used to getting comfortable being uncomfortable. He has
Mhm.
always like uproot me. Like, it's almost like, okay, I need you over here now.
Here's
And
the
it was
next test.
here's the next test. And when I went there, Sarah, it was like people were waiting for me. When I spoke, they were like, "You must be Holly. I heard about you." And opportunities just opened because God don't play about me, Sarah. When I got there, there was an opportunity to work at the Braille. It's only two paying jobs, the plants and the Braille Production Center. I never heard of Braille. What's Braille? It's like, okay, I'm learning how to transcribe books for the blind. I'm learning the language of code. I've never heard of this. Like, I don't even know anybody that's blind that ever reads Braille. Like, where did this come from? And a woman came up to me. She was like, "You need to sign up for the Braille program." All the ladies on the dorm was like, "Don't even bother. I've been waiting 5 years. I've been waiting 10 years." But when God has purpose for you, He will skip you to the front of the line. And that's what happened. I got to leave in June. I was in Braille by October.
Wow.
Once, yes. So, yeah.
Wow. That's awesome. So, you're serving there for a few years, and, um, the reason that your message to me on LinkedIn caught my attention is because we have a mutual friend,
Wow, yes.
and,
Yes.
this man, Lester Young, is somebody that has touched
Mm,
my heart. We met also, I think, on LinkedIn, and he is a formerly incarcerated man who has created this amazing ministry
mm.
to help reduce recidivism. And he wrote the book, The uh, Laws of Incarceration.
5 stages of
5
incarceration.
Stages of
Right.
Incarceration, which I have the book behind me. I won't give it up because
Yeah.
I'll let people borrow it, but Um, I read it just the once, but just even having it in my home
Right.
reminds me of hope and purpose.
Yes.
So tell me about your relationship with Lester Young and how you met, and then we'll turn back around and wrap it up at the end of this.
Yes. So the power of social currency. I tell people all the time, Sarah, that the most valuable asset that you can ever attain is social currency. Like, it will take you much further than money can ever will. Because when you get to a certain level, like I love listening to people like the Warren Buffetts and all of it. And one thing I never forget about him, he says, "I don't care how much money you got. I don't care how much money I can make with you, make from you. If I don't like you, I don't work with you." Like, you get
Right.
to a s yeah, I don't work with if I don't like you as a person. Your integrity is flawed. When you get to a certain level, money don't matter. Everybody got it. So unless you have something more than just money, you're not gonna move. You're not gonna open no doors. You're gonna stay right there
Yeah.
stuck with all your money because that's everybody is everything is so transactional now, and that's everybody's mindset. Nobody wants to add value, give value, share value. It's just about, that.
Yeah, I think
Anyway,
at a certain level that seems to happen,
so yes.
and the question is that always within a person that shows up when they reach a certain level of income or, um, net, um, what is the word I'm looking for? The net value of your person, your
Right.
all of your accounts and everything,
Mhm.
or is it something that happens to some people because um, they lose their sense of humanity? Like, that's a conversation for another time, but I
Yes.
just wanted to put that forward that it's not we all are not interested in adding value because
Right.
you and I have social networks that all we do is
That's
give and
right.
contribute. That's the whole purpose of our lives. It's why we
That's
do what we do is
that's right.
to contribute and serve. Okay.
Yes.
So you met Lester Young. How did you meet him again?
Okay, so I wound up joining the church. I joined the church. This lady sat me next to this amazing woman who told me I was going to be an author. Amazing woman named Geraldine Noble told me I was going to be an author. 60 days later, I become an author. And but prior to that, she invites me to a gala, a sponsorship gala. My very first time ever being in a sponsorship gala, learning how that even works, just being in that environment, amazing, just different people, different conversations. Meet a woman there who invites me to the National League of Women Voters Christmas party. Wow. I
Oh,
just
it's
couldn't believe.
awesome.
Okay, okay. Nothing but really people that I would never be in the room with having conversation. I mean, all the lawmakers, all the decision makers in here in South Carolina, all in one room, and I was invited. And I was just wearing prison garments the other day. Look, girl. So I meet a woman there named Dr. Pete. Now, all of this is in my book too, Becoming Her. I meet Dr. Pete there. Dr. Pete just so happened I had just did I got a financial analysis done. I'm sorry, a market analysis done. I hired somebody through Fire to do a market analysis for me. We had a conversation. She needed a market analysis done out of the conversation. I said, "Oh, I have someone for you." Introduced her to my person, whatever. She got a market analysis done. About a week later, she gives me a call. She says, "Do you know a guy named Lester Young?" I said, "No, but I'll find him." She's a doctor at the Department of Juvenile Justice. She says, "There's something that just come across my desk, and God placed you on my heart. I think this will be a perfect opportunity for you. There's a credible messenger program coming here, and Lester Young got the contract." I said, "I'll find him." Girl, I found Lester, right? I called him up. I said, "Hey, sir, you don't know me, but I know you." Right? And I said, "You have this program, Credible Messenger, coming up at DJJ. I would like the opportunity to interview to be a credible messenger." He said, "Who are you? And how did you even know about this contract? The ink is not even dry yet on the contract." I said, the power of social currency. So that's how I met Lester here.
Oh, I love that so much. And for our listeners, we'll have a link to Lester Young's page, website, and where you can look at his books and look at his ministry and listen to his story. And if I can find a link to the episode I recorded with him, it was years ago. And then I recorded more conversations with him for a book that I'm writing a little while ago, but I didn't publish it as a podcast episode. So, listeners, you won't want to miss finding Lester Young and learning more about him after you dive into Holly's website and grab her book. Okay, so you meet Lester Young, you get into this Credible Messenger program, which for our listeners, can you just describe what that is? What do they do in the Credible Messenger program?
Yeah, so Credible Messenger, the one great thing about it is the prerequisite is to have lived experience. The one thing that normally knocks you out of the running when you try to apply for jobs after incarceration, being a felon. So being a felon actually helps you be a credible messenger. And what we do is go into institutions and we work with justice impacted people, justice impacted women, men, but mostly youth. The Credible Messenger program was started to pretty much work with the youth. And it's pretty much people who can understand because they have the lived experience. And a lot of times people listen to those people that have been through the same things that they've been
Sure.
through. And that's what
Mhm.
makes us credible, a credible messenger because of that lived experience and just using that, turning that pain into purpose and teaching other people how to do the same.
So it's mostly you're building relationships with young people who are in the system so that they have a mentor, a guide. It's like the big brothers, big sisters
That's
of
right.
of youth judicial system participants
Yes.
or
Yes.
people. That's such an awesome idea. Um, so when you think about, we talked about this briefly in our conversation
Mhm.
before we recorded this episode. You talked about how your book can resonate with people who haven't been physically incarcerated in jail or prison because many of us experience some other form of incarceration or constraints,
Yeah.
boundaries, things that we feel are placed on us, even if we made decisions to end up where we are. Um,
Right.
so, tell me about the woman that you mentioned during our first call about how she said that your story resonated with her because of
Yeah.
where she was in within constraints.
Right. So I was talking to a woman and she said, "You know, Holly, you spent 10 years in prison trying to redefine who you are and rebuild your life." She said, "I spent 10 years in a domestic violence marriage trying to hold on to a piece of the woman I was losing every day." And I realized that incarceration doesn't include bars. It's not always bars. There's emotional, spiritual, mental incarceration. I talk to people who are incarcerated from unforgiveness, cannot move forward, cannot heal, cannot find happiness and joy because they're still angry about something that can never change. The person is dead and gone. And your
Mm.
unforgiveness toward them is incarcerating you and
And
stopping
yourself.
growth. Yes, yes,
Mhm.
incarcerating you and those who you love. I see so many children incarcerated from their parents' incarceration, generational
Mhm.
incarceration from thought processes, from programming gets you incarcerated. The
Mhm.
normal ways of doing things. Me thinking that I can operate under the laws of the land, I was incarcerated by the street code before I was physically incarcerated,
Mhm.
right? So there's so many, and the blueprint is the same, Sarah. To rebuild you have to heal. All forms of incarceration starts with some form of trauma that you have to heal from, so you don't allow it
Mm.
to trigger a form incarceration.
So you stop the pattern. So you stop the cycle.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. There are a couple of times where all the hairs on the back of my neck went up as you were speaking. I think it's so important that people know that they are incarcerated, right? I think that's the biggest challenge that you face as a person who provides service like this, who
Yes.
cares to guide people out of that box that they're
Mhm.
put in or that they put themselves in or whatever it is. They have to know there's a box to begin with,
Mhm.
right? And that
Mhm.
that is contributing that's the contributing factor to their anger, their lack of a feeling of control of their own lives, their dissatisfaction in their relationships and in their jobs
Right.
and in their where they live. It's all related to acknowledging the constraints that are there and that you are holding on to because it's all you know.
Right. Right. And it starts with looking in the mirror, understanding that you have no control over anybody but yourself. Like you have 100,000% control over you. You have to change you before anything in the situation can change. You. It starts with you. And I had to realize that because of how my situation went, everybody, the world would say, "Oh, your cousins did this, their snitch did this." And no, it was me.
I
My
made
choice.
that choice.
I made that choice to give
Mhm,
them the ammunition, right, to do whatever.
mhm,
I made that choice. And that's the problem. I'm not going to allow you to convince me to justify my actions because of the programming that we all been under. It's time to stop that. I'm
mm.
not doing that. And I tell people all the time, if you want somebody to lie to you, don't call me. Don't even ask me. Because I make myself cry, Sarah. So myself
You gotta
cry.
tell the truth.
Yes, because that's the only way I was able to get past that, to get to here. And it's so much more truth I gotta tell myself, Sarah, so I can get to the next place and the next place. And And that's the only way you can truly heal. If you don't tell the truth to yourself, you can't find the root of the problem. You can't
Mm.
find out what really triggers you if you can't be honest about what happened, about what you did, about your choices. And it may not have been your fault, but it's your problem
Mm. True words.
now. Mhm.
Holly, this has been such a pleasure. I've
Thank you.
so enjoyed our conversation. I know our
It's
listeners
really hard to
will.
hear.
Mm. Well, I have no doubt that you'll be sharing this episode with the people who need to hear it. And
Yes.
I always think about it this way. We could have 100,000 listeners and that wouldn't be meaningful unless a few of them change something,
Yes.
right? But if we have 100 listeners or
Mhm.
500 listeners, and even 10% of them, something triggers a change in what they do, then we've done our job.
Yes. Yes. And I just want everybody to know that, you are the author of your story. At any time, you can turn the page and write a new chapter for your life. At any time. It's your choice. And once you change your lens, you change your life. And girl, I change my lenses all the time, don't I, Sarah?
You do. I love those glasses. I love those glasses. As a matter of fact, I need to take a screenshot of the two of us so that we can see those awesome. Oh,
Yeah.
whoops. I messed that up. We're going to do that again. Okay, you ready? We're going to smile and we're going to put this in the podcast show notes. Awesome.
Good.
Holly, thank you. It's been a
Thank you
pleasure.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, listeners, it's your turn. You probably already know what I'm going to ask
Mhm.
you. Where are you incarcerated? What are you choosing not to see in your own decisions that maybe with a little light on them can help you find more satisfaction and happiness in your life? It's a simple question, but the answer might be tricky. Thanks for listening to Your Stories Don't Define You. How you
That's
tell
the
them will.
time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use?